Welcome to the Website Success Show, the podcast dedicated to helping women in business get more traffic and sales through their website with less reliance on social media and paid ads. I'm Jules White, the founder of the Website Success Hub, and I love helping local and online businesses make more money through their existing website. If you have a business you love, but you don't like the way your website performs, then this is the show for you. So hi, welcome back to the Website Success Show. Today I'm joined by Rachel Mess, the owner of the Inclusive Design Company. So welcome, Rachel. It's so great to have you here.
No, I'm excited.
Yeah, so am I. I'm really excited about today, actually. It'll be good. We've had a couple of chats recently and we just decided actually I needed to get Rachel on the podcast so we could have a chat about all of the important things to do with accessibility. There's so much overlap, I think, between SEO and accessibility for websites that I thought this would be a really good chat to have and really helpful for all the listeners. So before we dive into that, do you want to just let us know a little bit more about what you do? And yeah, we'll go from there.
Yeah, so I'm first and foremost like a web designer. I develop websites on Webflow and I tend to work with service providers. So kind of anyone from financial advisors, copywriters, logistics companies, DEI consultants, etc. But from the very beginning, I realized that I didn't know anything about accessibility, thought I'd made a massive mistake, so went on a little learning curve and wanted to make sure that all of the websites that I was creating for clients were accessible for all of their potential clients because I didn't want to charge somebody for a custom website and then there could be somebody on the other side of a screen somewhere that's struggling to use it just because of my kind of lack of knowledge or not putting that knowledge into practice.
Okay, so can you just explain in sort of basic terms what accessibility is for websites?
Yeah, so it's making sure that websites and your kind of brand as a whole is usable for anyone regardless of any like visual impairments, learning disabilities, their age, maybe if they speak like English as a second language, if websites are usable for anyone with any limb um like disabilities, anything like that. Basically just yeah, trying to make everything as user friendly as possible.
Okay,
Thinking about all the possible scenarios that
okay, fantastic. And so what are like how did you kind of get into this like world? Was there anything in particular that made you think like did you have a light bulb moment or something that kind of made
No, well, I didn't actually have a light bulb moment where I feel like I should have. So my sister's visually impaired, and I had gone through I'd got a diploma in UX design, and I had done a whole bunch of courses, and nothing had mentioned accessibility. And I think when I was just sitting at my computer playing around with designs, I was just in my own little design bubble and playing having fun with different fonts and different colors. And it was my sister that pointed out the first website I'd created for myself. It was pointing out text that was really difficult for her to read. And it was just because the weight of the font was really light, and one of the fonts was like a script handwritten font. And
yeah,
I was just like, oh my God, I didn't think of this at all.
yeah.
I kind of thought I'd been an idiot. But to be honest, it was just that it really hadn't been mentioned in any of the courses that I'd taken. So yeah.
Yeah, I think when I first heard about accessibility, I think I heard about it through being taught about SEO. I don't think I ever, when I first learned about properly building websites, I don't remember it. Certainly, I don't remember it being a lesson, or there certainly
Really
wasn't,
something that's missed
yeah,
or overlooked a lot.
absolutely, yeah. And a bit like SEO, where often if people are employing somebody to build a website for them,
Yeah,
SEO is either a bit of an afterthought or is not really thought about at all, not really discussed at all. And this might be a similar sort of thing with accessibility, where
yeah,
developers are a little bit scared to talk about it, so they just don't, rather than saying, actually,
absolutely.
you need to go and speak to Jules for SEO, or you need to go and speak to Rachel to talk about accessibility of this
I think
brand
that
new
that's
website
so
that you're having
true.
built.
I
But
think that's so true.
yeah, and people kind of just like hope that nobody's gonna sort of
Pretend it's not a thing.
pretend
Like
it's not a
pretend it's
thing.
not a thing. Like we just will talk about it. It's not a thing. Don't
Yeah,
worry.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. It's crazy, and I'm sure like you'll have seen so many websites where SEO hasn't been considered like at all, and there'll be such basic mistakes. And I've definitely seen like people on maybe like connections on LinkedIn being like, oh my gosh, like my new website's just launched. I'm so excited. Thank you so much to so and so. Absolutely love it. And like the first screenshot that they've shared, I'm like, there's there's no contrast. There's like such low contrast between your font and your background. Or I'll go have a quick little nosy. I'm like, no, there's no descriptions on your images and all of these types of things that, and you just I'm sure you'll feel the same. There's kind of like a frustration within the community of being like, come on, guys, we can do better than this. Why are we
Yeah.
not all just doing the things?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's definitely this thing of like that basic, like for me, SEO friendliness, for you, accessibility friendliness. This isn't even
Yeah,
like full strategy on how can we make this website as accessible as it absolutely needs to
absolutely.
be. It's just
Because it's fast.
basicness. Yeah. Like, yeah, the friendliness of those two things, I think makes such a
Yeah,
big difference. And funnily enough, the two things that you mentioned there, the alt text on images and the font contrast
yeah.
are things that help websites to actually show
SEO.
up. There's so much
Yeah,
like so much crossover really between SEO
yeah.
and accessibility. And
Like
you've just mentioned two. Yeah,
heading levels is
absolutely.
always a big thing for me.
Yes.
And they're
Web
so
page
important
structure.
for SEO. They're so important for SEO.
So
Uh,
why does that matter for accessibility? So we're talking here about our page hierarchy, which anyone who's listened to the podcast for any length of time will know that page hierarchy is really important. So I always explain it that your page should be kind of like an English essay where you have one heading and then all of the hierarchy underneath it. So you just have one H1 heading. Underneath that, you have H2s that sort of break things down into the subtopics of that page. If you were thinking about your English essay, you'd have one heading at the top, then subheadings, and then maybe some H3 headings underneath that. So that's why that matters from an SEO point of view. It matters because it helps the bots read through your website and understand that structure. Why does it matter from an accessibility point of view?
because it helps screen reader users read through the website. It gives assistive technologies that under so the exact same way that Google and search engines are reading and understanding the context, screen readers and other assistive technologies need to have that understanding of what is the structure of this. So if somebody's blind and they're listening to the contents on a website, they get that like note of H1, this is the main title, H2. So it gives them the understanding of what is the hierarchy, what is the what is the talking points that
What are the important parts of
yeah,
this page? I think that's
yeah.
really important. That's yeah, it's the same signals to the actually, yeah, if it's a real person listening, if it's a real person looking at the page, I think as well. So if we're
Because
not thinking
we'll
about this,
see because we'll see like a visual difference.
yeah,
Like we're not looking at websites that are just top to bottom paragraph body text. Like we're seeing like a visual breakup of what are the headings, what are the subheadings. So just putting in the actual correct heading structures
yeah.
gives anyone using assistive technologies
Yeah.
that kind of note to be like, this is what we're talking about here.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And once you know about this, and once you know how to check it, I always talk about AIO SEO, which is a little Google Chrome plugin I use. And you can go to your own website, you can install that. If you're using Google Chrome, you can go to the Chrome store, install that plugin, go to your own website and click on it, and it will show you your heading structure on your page. And once you look at it and you see H4 at the top, followed by H2, followed by like 101 H1s, 36 is the most I've seen on a website. And it's not that uncommon, especially if people are using technology like FEA Create. Sometimes some of their templates aren't particularly set up well for this page hierarchy. But you go there and you look at this, and this is often like that's usually the first check I do to see if there's any page hierarchy. And I can often you can tell if people have at least spent some time thinking about their SEO, and
Yeah,
for you, I guess, for accessibility as well.
yeah.
But one of the things that you can do once you know that, and you know how, like, and you know in your website builder how to fix it, and most website builders, this is a fairly common fix. You can select the
Yeah.
text and then select what headings you want it to be. And then if you want that, actually, I'm going to come back to that, but you want to, once you know that, it's actually it's not a bad little job to go through and do. And it makes such a big difference. It's something that you don't necessarily need a massive amount of brain power to do that. One of my
So,
clients said she quite likes doing that on a day where she doesn't feel like doing other stuff, but she wants to do something. Going through that is a really positive thing. She feels like she's made a difference to her website. And one of
yeah.
my website growth club members came on and shared that as a win. We share wins in the group of like it's small wins, big wins, whether they're getting clients, whether they're making progress on something. She came in and she said, I've been through and fixed all of my like heading structure on my important pages. And that's such a big win because it makes such a big difference, I think,
Yeah,
really. Yeah,
absolutely.
definitely. definitely.
Absolutely. And I think it's just that I always say like we're so lucky to kind of live in a time and to be running businesses in a time where it's so easy to like get a website out there and start like promoting ourselves, promoting our businesses, booking clients. But there really does seem to be like such a lack of like resources or like learning hints within these platforms, even with
Mm,
like Squarespace, Wix, but yeah, like anything like you mentioned FE Create, like all of these like kind of sub agencies and sub softwares as well. I think just having like a little note there to tell people
yeah,
this is what these headed structures mean, because I think what happens is a
yeah,
lot of people just go with the size.
yeah,
So
yeah,
they just go like, oh yeah, I want a big heading here, so I'm going to go with an H2. And I want a small heading here, so I'm going to put this little H5 above my H1.
yeah. Or
Um,
just, yeah, just want it to look slightly different color or something. And
yeah,
actually, it's paragraph text, so it shouldn't even be a heading because it's not that important on the page.
yeah,
Or you know, everything on the page is important, but it's not something that needs like if somebody was skim reading through that
yeah,
page or had, as you say, had a screen reader reading that out, that it
yeah,
would be able to understand those headings, understand what your call to action is, so the buttons on the page, and be able to take action from that point without having to read all of the paragraphs on the page. But I think
absolutely.
that's one of the things, a little trick if people, because I think the website platforms do set us up to fail, don't they? As you say, they're not even just a few little hints there to say, this, you know, just have one H1 on each page. That
Yeah,
like a simple thing, but
yeah,
we would recommend, and it's, you know, because it's your website, you can choose to do what you want with it. But if you
yeah.
want a website that's going to perform for you, which most people do, and most people I think want this set up in a way that it's good for
Yeah,
people to
and when
use.
it's platforms that have been literally designed and developed to help like the business owner, the individual shop owner, small business owner, like that's what they were created to do. They weren't created for developers like WordPress and Webflow and stuff like that. Like these ones that were specifically targeted to be like, we're going to help like the the woman that started her own business and like get her like on a flying start. Yeah, to like not give those hints.
Yeah.
It's definitely something that's kind of missed out, I think.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Massive opportunity there, I think, really, just for it to be built in. But then there's so many, like I often have so many frustrations with platforms really as well that they just don't make, like they don't make the user experience easier for us as the business owner,
Yeah,
that then makes that end user experience that helps our customers and helps our customers then to take action and buy from us realistically, or you know, join our email list or whatever action we're trying to get them to take. If all of these things have a knock-on effect, really. I think it's
yeah,
because
like
it's all the geeks in the background, the proper
I know.
geeks in the background who don't who aren't running a business necessarily. They don't necessarily think about the fact of actually just a little hover over that said, do you, you know, you've got 10
Yeah,
H1s on this page. Are you sure?
yeah, yeah. And I think it's just like it's obviously like the developers in the background that are building the platforms. Their brains probably work like a lot different to like our brains, who are like the business owners that are trying to like set these things up, like even like for clients, like for you and me that are helping. Our brains work so differently.
Mhm.
And you're probably quite similar to me where like the aesthetics are like fairly important, or like just a good sort of like feeling like there's a good user flow. That's something I've always struggled with WordPress.
Yeah.
If I've gone into a WordPress site for somebody to give them a hand, and then I'm going in, I'm like, why is this not saving? Why is this not
Mhm.
like, why is this not
Where
just
do I
doing
change my
what
footer?
it's
How
doing?
how do I do this?
Yeah. Like, and literally doing something like 3 or 4 times and then being like, oh, I have to scroll down to the bottom and hit save.
Yeah.
Yeah, things like that where you're just going like, oh, the people that have built this, like I'm just wired differently. It's
Yeah.
not making sense to me.
Yeah, they need to have more conversations with people with end users who
Absolutely.
and be sitting there watching them struggle and watching them
Yeah.
like
Because it's
not
user
be able to do
experience.
it. It
That's
is.
all UX is.
Yeah,
I don't
absolutely.
know why that's actually not more of a thing within
Yeah, no, nor do I.
actual developers.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe because they want, I don't know. I kind of feel like, oh, maybe they want to keep it in the hands of developers, but it doesn't really help anybody, does it? So.
No, I know.
So, what are like if somebody's thinking about like actually a question I was asked first is what are some of the big mistakes that you see with accessibility? So obviously we've talked about
So yeah,
heading structure,
like
haven't we?
Yeah, definitely contrast levels is the big one. And people get very, very, very attached to the colors that they're using, which I get because we are like predominantly we're visual people and we want to love the colors that we're using, and colors do have their own like meanings. So you want to be using colors that are gonna like work well for your business and that you love and you're happy with. But I mean, I've had a few conversations, and I remember one really sticks out in my mind where we were talking accessibility, me and this other business owner, and they were talking about how important accessibility is to them. But their two main brand colors didn't have, they were partnered with white, so it was always like white text on like bright pink or like a bright purple, and the contrast level was like failing contrast
Mhm.
effects. And the business owner was just like, oh, but well, we have to have these colors though, because that's my favorite color and that's the other business partner's favorite color. And I was like, but but people can't read the text that you're putting. So I think that sometimes trying to come in with that sort of practical love pink, love purple, but what tones can we find? What shades can we find that are gonna then allow you to keep that color or keep a shade of that color, but in a way that, when you're putting posts out on Instagram,
Yeah.
everyone can read what you're saying, because
Yes.
otherwise it's silly to use it.
Yeah. Or
Um,
maybe don't use it as a background for the text. If you're
yeah,
that adamant, oh, we want white text and we want this color, then don't use
yeah,
it that as the background for the text,
exactly,
realistically.
exactly. So
Yeah.
color contrast is a big one, and
That's a big one for Google as well. We can go to Google's page speed insights, and one of the things it will tell us is if the contrast on our page is
yeah,
not right for color.
and really common ones are like you have like the corporate side where it's like grey text on white backgrounds, but then you have like the more personal brands and the fun brands, and it will be like bright pink or yellow or like bright turquoise on a white background, or white text on that color of background. So yeah, that's definitely the main one. Um, let's see what else.
What
Lack of
about what about font size? Because I think this is something where people either go too small or too big. I see that often where and usually it's too small. I normally say not below a well, Google doesn't like below a 16 pixel. I never use, I don't think, below an 18 pixel on websites really.
Yeah, no. So 16 is the absolute minimum.
Mm.
So yeah, that's just always what I have in mind. And anyone that I mean, I do sometimes work with clients where like they'll provide the design and I'll just build it out. That's not my favorite to work on because it may always end up with me going, oh, like we can't do that, we can't use that one. Um, but yeah, that'll be when they're giving you something like a size 12 or a 14, and I'll just be quietly bumping it up to 16. Being like absolute minimum 16. But yeah, I'm always kind of anywhere between like kind of 18 and 21
Mm.
is where I tend to kind of fall in. It depends on the fonts that you're using as well.
Yes.
It can kind of change how, and this is actually something that I genuinely don't understand. Like I'll be like, why does size 17 in this font or size 18 in this font look different from size 18 in that font?
Mm.
Because I'm like, but it's pixels, so it should be taking up the
Yeah.
same amount of space. And I genuinely don't understand why
Yeah.
some can look like so drastically different from each other.
Yeah.
But yeah, it depends on the font, but I kind of go between like 18 and 21
Yeah.
is my happy list. I also work in, this is me getting developery, but I tend to work in rems rather than pixels. So actually when people are asking me actual font sizes, I'm like 4.5 rem for a H1. People and then I'm like, I don't actually know what that is in pixels, maybe like 60 or something like that.
I think you're supposed to use that now, aren't you, Rems? Like, but I still
It
haven't
helps
made
with
that
like
switch over.
your responsiveness. Yeah,
Yes. Yeah.
yeah,
So it helps then those fonts perform better on mobile if you
yeah,
do use that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I've not quite got to that point yet of using that. So
Then you get I was then using REMs for like kind of everything, but then if you're talking about like spacing between things, you're still supposed to use pixels because that keeps it more
oh
regimented.
yes, yeah, yeah.
So it's all they're always changing things, so you're
Yeah.
always having to like keep learning. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But no, yeah. So when it comes to pixels, I'm always just like minimum font 16. Um, and I suppose if you're worried about fonts looking too big. That's a tricky one because different designs will call for it. Like some designs will be like very like massive text heavy, and that's like their design choice.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's a it's trickier to kind of I think get the balance when it's like the big fonts decide like
Yeah.
where we actually
Yeah.
sit in. But as long as it's big enough, I think for
Yeah.
people, then that's good.
So if somebody is just a small business owner, they're just starting to think about accessibility, what are the things that they should consider?
Okay, well, I actually, do you know what? I need to sit.
Got the dog here, she's barking.
I have like a free, like kind of like 10 things like checklist, which I think is actually really handy because it just gives you like a little basic thing. But if anybody
We can
wants,
pop a link to that. And then we
anyone
can update
that,
the link. Yeah.
yeah, shoot me a message and I'll get that over to you. Um, but I think when you're first starting, the easy thing is to get your colors and go to WebAIM's. It's like webaim.org/checker, and that's like a contrast checker that I use, and that
Okay.
will just let you test your colors. So I think that's the kind of like first thing. Then I would go through your website and have so a big thing as well as that we've not spoken about is like images and descriptions on images.
Oh, yes, we were going to chat about that, weren't we? Yes.
And those those can be kind of tricky, and those are the ones that are more like a balancing act that you need to kind of think about. But basically, if you have any images on your website that convey information, so if you've got any like charts, any like screenshots of testimonials, anything with like text or information in it, there needs to be a description for that. Because again, if anyone's using a screen reader, then they're not going to know what that image says if you don't write it down and tell it.
Mm.
But another one, if it's just for, I always think, see for like photographers, nail artists, hairdressers, anything where like the visuals really show what it is that you do, then again, give a description of that. Like tell the screen reader user,
This is
like,
really important for
what to
SEO as
provide.
well.
Yeah,
That makes a massive difference. Ideally, for every page that we're trying to get to show up on Google, we want at least one image with the alt text actually
yeah. And I
describing
always,
that image.
and I always say,
We probably have a little bit of a like what we want to do for SEO is not necessarily what we want to do for
no, no,
accessibility.
because actually, I always try to like bring in some keywords for the description as well, depending on, I think almost like depending on how many descriptions we're writing. So if it's say like a hairdresser's or a salon, and it's in, let's say it's in Glasgow,
Mhm.
obviously your sort of keyword would be hair salon in Glasgow, blah blah blah, the description. But I'm not going to put that into like every single image because if there was like a blind person that was looking for a hair salon and they're first of all if there's descriptions on them all, that blind person is probably like, oh my god, this is amazing, I've actually got descriptions on all of these images and I can actually listen to like the color and the style that this person provides because it's so like underutilized and there's so many businesses don't do it that I know like from people that I know who are screen reader users have said like when they come across a business that has these, they're like so happy about it and it makes them then become like more loyal to that customer and actually like send people to that business, people that they know, because they'll be like, this business is really accessible, this person's
Yeah.
really thought
That
in
they've
like
actually made an effort at least to do some
effort.
basic accessibility. Yeah.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
like if it's something like that, then it's trying to be a little bit more creative with the keywords and it's maybe putting the keywords at the end as opposed to at the beginning because the person listening doesn't want to constantly be hearing hair
Yeah.
salon in Glasgow, blah blah blah. Hair salon in Glasgow, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
So yeah. But yeah, it's just trying to get that sort of balance of what descriptions you're putting in. If things are there purely for decorations, like for decorative images, like you don't have to write a description for
No, that would be really annoying if it was
if
like floral
like
background.
yeah, and even when it's pictures of like, if it's like for our websites and there's pictures of you and me throughout the full website,
Yeah.
I tend to put like a description on like one of the images, like per page,
Mhm.
to give like a little like visual of like what I look like, what the picture is of, that type of thing.
Mm.
After that point, they don't need to listen to like 4 or 5 descriptions of Rachel is a white woman in her 30s with dark hair, the like sitting at a desk working on her laptop. Like that's just
Yeah.
noisy for people.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I guess it's again that thinking about those important things that need to
Yeah,
show up on the page, really, definitely.
yeah,
And those images themselves can be the thing that show up on Google from an SEO point of view. Again, like that can literally you can show up in the images tab and that
yeah,
can bring people through to your website. As you say about that hairdresser in Glasgow example there, that definitely could bring new visitors to your website. And yeah,
yeah.
it's massive
I actually
difference,
had
really.
such a funny story about that, which I suppose isn't really related to a customer finding me. That's obviously what you're looking for. But this is such a tangent, but I was with my friend's little boy who was like 5 at the time, and he was just talking about different celebrities to me. He was like, "Do you know who Ariana Grande is? Do you know who Taylor Swift is?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he was like Googling their names and showed me pictures of them in Google Images. And then he put in my name, and then actual images of me came up, and it was like images from the website or images from like LinkedIn and stuff like that. And he was like, because he like thought I was famous. He was like, "You're on Google Images."
Google.
Yeah, like those. It's just funny because you're right. Like when you're putting those descriptions into images, like they do then show up in Google Images. And
Which would be handy if people
ideally,
know
you want
about
a
you.
paying, ideally you want a paying customer to like find them and then come across, not like your 5-year-old sort of nephew who's just gonna be like, "Wow, you're famous." And you're like, "I'm not, pal." But
But it
that,
is important, I think. It helps, and especially moving into AI search as well. It's really important that we build up this like positive brand sentiment, and part of that is people being able to find us, and part of it is the images and those kind of things make a difference, really.
yeah,
So yeah.
yeah, yeah,
The
definitely.
dog's still here. Like she's
So, yeah,
causing trouble today. She's
like
been for a groom and she's on a trouble mission now.
buzzing. No, she's buzzing.
Yeah.
She's feeling like fresh, and she's like, "Everybody look at me, like how good I look."
I want to be on YouTube too.
She's so cute. She's so cute.
Bless her.
Oh, so good.
So what advice would you give to somebody who wants to like just wants to consider the basics? You said you've got your guide, didn't you? So they can grab that. If somebody wanted to just take one piece of action and look at their own website, they actually the AIO SEO plugin also does show you about images that have got alt text and images that are missing alt text. So that's another one that if you're already using that plugin, you can click on the little images tab and that will take you and show you that information. What else can people do if they want to just get started with this?
Um, I don't want to say like book an audit because that's more of a, but you can book an audit. Actually, like you're saying, like things like the AI, the SEO tab and like Lighthouse, putting a website through Lighthouse will give you an
What's
accessibility
what's
to
Lighthouse?
Lighthouse, Google Lighthouse. It's a way to that you can use Lighthouse or Google Page Speed.
Yes, yeah,
That
I've seen the because there's an accessibility tab on page speed, isn't
accessibility
there?
like score. So
Yeah,
actually, I think if you're literally like, I want to do one thing that gives me like a hint of where my website is at, go onto Google Page Speed and it will give you a kind of score out of 100
yeah,
and let you know where you're at. And then if it's not very high, then yeah, come chat to me.
yeah,
I can give you that resource. Yeah, book an audit, like things like that.
yeah,
Just, I think things like what we've spoken about, checking your contrast levels, checking the heading structure. It's small things. Like it really is like small things with accessibility. Don't get me wrong, there's all of these different layers to it that the more you're considering it in your business, then the more considerations you're always going to start making.
mhm,
But just to get started, things like your contrast levels, your heading structures, your font styles. Um, if you've got lots of like handwritten like font styles like across like your social media, across anything, like those are big ones that are like really difficult for
yeah.
a lot of people to read. So
Yeah, I'm never that keen on script fonts. I think it's definitely something that's it needs to be something that doesn't matter on your page. If you're going to use a bit of script font, almost treat it like decoration on the page, really.
Yeah.
Because I don't, they're not great. I think anything where we're making people like, and this isn't just for people who do have additional accessibility needs. This is also for anyone who's visiting our website. I think with all of this stuff, like, we don't want people to have to get their glasses out to read our website, ideally, which is why the font size on mobile particularly matters.
100%. That's always something I do think about where if I'm chatting to somebody and they're like, oh, well, like our ideal customers like aren't visually impaired. And I'll be like, no, but maybe you're like financial advisors or mortgage brokers, and a lot of your like ideal customers are going to be people in their like 40s or 50s that have got more buying power than like your first time buyers in their 20s or 30s. So they're bigger, kind of better customers for you, generally speaking, because they've got more money. And our eyesight starts deteriorating like as we age. So you want things to be as user friendly for like your aging customers.
Yeah. Yeah,
Oh,
absolutely. And how do we know? We don't know
oh,
what
I
additional
know.
needs people have, or just convenience needs as well. But people might not just be using a screen reader because of visual impairment. They may be using it for other reasons. So, like, it makes,
There's also this sort of aspect too, which I think a lot of people overlook, is having a disability or being disabled is like the one sort of minority group that anyone can end up like going into.
yeah,
Like I have an old boss who, when I worked under her, like she didn't have any sight issues, anything like that, but over the last like 5 years or so, her sight has like drastically deteriorated. She's like waiting for like surgeries, things like that. So she's needing to listen to like audio descriptions and put on page readers like on her phone because she has like almost lost her sight just in
yeah,
the last like 5 years.
yeah,
And so any business owner wouldn't, it's one of those things like if you actually like meet the person, you're always like really considerate of their needs and you want to make sure that you're still able to like provide the service, that they understand everything, that they can buy from you, like all of that. And I think just when we're talking like digitally, it's really easy to kind of be like, oh, well, I don't like none of my customers like have these issues. But like they could, and
yeah.
you don't know. It's just
No, we don't. We don't. Definitely
yeah,
not. Definitely not. And it might be other things. Like, I don't know whether it suddenly just occurred to me, people with dyslexia maybe would use screen readers because it's easier for them than trying to read a website to hear it talked out loud. Is that the right way to say that?
yeah,
And
so more.
also, something that just popped into my mind as well. This kind of stuff would
Yeah,
also help with the voice search optimization for
yeah,
even things like our smart speakers and our phones and AI chats where we're chatting with via voice.
yeah,
All of this kind of stuff does
yeah.
massively help. So yeah, we
No,
can't just
I've been thinking this week because I hurt my hand at the weekend, and so it's been difficult to like type because I'll usually like I'll still use like my left thumb to also like take things out, and it's like just under my left thumb that I hurt. And so I've been sending a lot more voice notes, and voice notes and FaceTimes were both created as like accessibility. They were both, so FaceTime was for deaf people so that they could phone each other and like sign to each other. That's why that was like created. And voice notes were created for blind people or visually impaired people so that they could send voice notes to each other and not have to be like typing things out less and using like their assistive technologies to then like hear the text read out to them.
yeah,
And these are just things that we use like every day without
yeah,
even like realizing that they were actually designed for people with disabilities. I mean, like it's one of those things of like when you're designing for like the margins or designing or creating for people that maybe aren't, yeah, that may have a disability, you're making life easier for everybody. Like everybody will
yes.
find like the benefit of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And anything that makes life easier, and especially when it comes to websites, anything that makes people not have to burn mental calories or make it easier for them to move that next step along the journey to buying from you is
Yeah,
so important. It really is.
yeah,
It
yeah.
really is. Absolutely. Absolutely. Fantastic. Oh, I feel like this has been a really, I knew we would have a good chat, but I feel like this has been a really good chat. So before we finish, do you want to just remind us of what you do and yeah, especially where people can find you?
Yeah, so if anyone ever just wants to like learn anything about accessibility or is thinking, I don't know, maybe if you've got like a team that you could do with like a workshop or it's something you want to learn more about, then come and find me. I'm on Instagram at Rachel at Inclusive Design. I'm on LinkedIn. It's Rachel Mess. And the company is the Inclusive Design Company.
And what's your website, Rachel?
The website is theinclusivedesigncompany.co.uk.
Oh, good. I always like to get that in there.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah, bear with me because it's still honestly, I'm like the saying of like the cobbler whose kids don't have any shoes. That's what I'm like with my own website, and I'm like, I really need to get it
That's
more.
standard though. That is absolutely standard for all website people, SEO people whose own websites are not fully
Yeah,
SEO optimized. Yeah, absolutely. That's standard. There's a
totally,
reason there's a saying for it, and it's the same I think
absolutely.
across all
As
all
soon
of
as it
them.
comes to like a client, I'm like, yeah, let me help, let me get it. And as soon as it's for me, I'm like, oh
Yeah,
God.
because it's easier. Doing it for somebody else is so much easier, right?
Just think it's more fun when it's for
Yeah,
somebody else. When
yeah,
it's for yourself, you're just like, I could be doing something else right now.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Oh, well, thank you so much for joining me, Rachel. I've really enjoyed this chat and thanks for listening, and we'll see you soon. Bye. If you'd like to attract more local clients, grab my free local visibility checklist. It'll show you the simple steps you can take to show up in your area for what you do. You can download it at thewebsitesuccesshub.com/local. And thanks for tuning in to the Website Success Show.